Hey, this is a Jabsco 18330 crash pump. Has 2-inch NPT in and out. It's capable of 78.5 gallons per minute, I believe, at about 1750 RPM. It's got a 24-volt DC magnetic clutch on the front, and there's a vacuum switch that prevents it from running dry, which is the only thing that'll kill this pump. It'll pump garbage and oil and water, no problem. And it has a head, suction head of 10 feet. So this came with the yacht, and it was bolted to the port engine, and we're gonna try to repair it and put it back on. I hope I don't ever have to use this, but it would be really nice to have, because the diesel engines, they're not gonna stop. Now you need 24 volts to close this clutch, but there's 3 screws. You can actually take an Allen screw and pull the clutch in manually here. So you can create, you can force the clutch in with screws. So I need to clean this all up and we'll find out what's going on here. But at any rate, I think it would be good to clean this up and get it put back together just in case. All right, moment of truth. I don't have any idea how bad it is in here. Oh, there's still water in it. Yeah, I can see why it didn't want to turn.
That's a lot of cheese.
Yes, it definitely has some cheese in it. Here we go. Incidentally, one of the features of this pump, as advertised on the webpage for it, was serviceable by unskilled people. So I think I'm going to be okay with this job. We're trying to get it to turn. I kind of broke each blade loose. Careful not to scratch the inner surface here, but I'm just trying to break each blade of the impeller loose here. I should have brought that impeller puller from the yacht. We have the pumps on the Detroit engines are bigger than this, so. Oh! Well, I'm gonna try to get this clutch off the front and pull this clutch and pulley off. I hope I have the right kind of puller to get this thing out. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to go grab one.
Wrong kind of puller.
Ah!
It's moving.
Ah! All right. It's alive. If I can clean this up and the bearings are good, I'm not even gonna take it all apart. Probably should change that impeller though. I'm just putting this back together because I don't have to take it apart now, I hope. So one other thing is that they said this pump will run either direction, it doesn't matter, but to set the impeller vanes in the right direction before you start it. Cinnamon thinks threatening this pump with a puller was good enough to break it free. Who would have known there's a pump under all that cheese? Getting it cleaned up little by little. And I've got a new impeller ordered for it, so we'll be able to swap that out as well. I'm trying to get this Allen wrench to go through this fitting, and it won't go. So that vacuum port's plugged up. I'm gonna try drilling it, couldn't get the Allen wrench through. So we have the proper Jabsco impeller puller. It's got a couple of pinchers that go down here and you tighten it and then you can pull up on it. But I don't feel like going to the yacht to get it, so I was going to show you kind of a cheater way to do it. This is only going to work if the impeller's not stuck and they put a bunch of grease on it when they put it on the shaft. So we'll see. It's been in here a long time. I don't know how long this thing's been in here. Ah! Oh, it's moving. Oh, sweet. Ta-da! Wow. So this is what they call a set to an impeller. This is why we change them every year in water pumps, because they get a set. So it's not going to pump very good when this vane comes by because it's already in the compressed position. So this is why you want to swap these out like they recommend for your water pumps. Looks pretty cheesy inside. It looks a little cheesy. Okay, the next thing to come out needs to be this plate that the impeller rides on. This is actually what causes the pumping action, because you can see the cavity's round and this plate makes it not quite round. That's what compresses the blades and gives you the vacuum and pumping effect. So there's a screw on the back for that. So we'll pull that screw. One of the things I like to do is when the screw's part way out, just turn your screwdriver around and pop it, and you can see it breaks the plate loose. There you go. Now we can clean that up as well. Jeez. To clean up a cover like this, to get it smooth, you can lap sand it. It's best if you have a piece of glass or something they actually make a proper surface for doing this. But a good piece of marine plywood like this that's straight will work fine for what I'm doing. But I put a little water underneath the paper, and that helps the paper to stick. And then I just put your piece on the top here and just go in a figure-8 motion. It's a lot better. So this is after we've lapped it. I don't know if I'll be able to get it for you to see there, but it's still got some staining, but it's perfectly smooth now. I can't feel any of these spots. This is going to be a little bit more challenging, but we'll keep going. It's improving, but we've got some more to do here, especially right there. Much better. Okay, looking good. I can't get my hand into the back of it, so Cinnamon's got this one. We're using bronze steel wool. We now have our crash pump cleaned up. It's still not beautiful, but the parts that need to be smooth and clean and ready to run are. So we just need our impeller and cover gasket. Do it again. Okay.
It's working.
Yeah. That was difficult to hold that up while she was touching the wires. Anyway, it's only 12 volts. We borrowed the car battery. It's a 24 volt system, but it does show that the coil is pulling the clutch in, so that's great. So it should work when we hook it up. The magnetic clutch tested good. So it's got some strands sticking out here on the wire, but it's still good on the entry. So we're just gonna slip some heat shrink over this and try to salvage this. All right, now I'll put a larger piece of heat shrink over these both just to help provide a little more support. We're gonna wipe this thing with some lacquer thinner. You should wear gloves when you do this, but we wanna get all this, any remaining grease off of this before we shoot this with some Rust-Oleum black. I suppose I could mask these grooves, but I'll probably just paint them and let the belt wear it off. There's not a big enough load on this thing for it to slip because of that. I think there's a screw missing here. What do you guys think? Maybe I'll try to drill and tap that, or I have an exploded diagram. You should check it out. I think I've got all the rust out of here I can, but I'm gonna go ahead and just blow this. There's some crap stuck in this hole. So one of my tricks is to leave it facing down because I don't want to push the stuff further in. And just take a drill bit in your hand and you can kind of just pull it in there. I don't want to go too high that I poke the diaphragm, but I just want to kind of get this stuff out and clean the hole up. So we tested this and it still works electrically. And I managed to get all the screws off, so we cleaned it up. I don't have my vacuum gun here. So I guess I'm just gonna have to test it the old-fashioned way. Looks like it works fine to me. So the diaphragm is not torn, that's good. So I guess I'm gonna try to clean this thing up and use it. For the vacuum switch, we got these plastic, these are actually for Romex wire, but they're plastic, so for like residential electrical, you use these to push the Romex wires through, which is very similar to marine cable because it's kind of a flat ribbon. So we'll put these in, and that's great. That's going to fit in there. I recognize those as a 1/2-inch knockout, also known as a 7/8 diameter. So we can put our in and out wires for the switch through that. That's going to be good. And then we got our new impeller. So we'll get this put in there, and we got some good spline grease to put in the shaft to keep it from getting stuck. I have a little bit more cleaning to do here. I'm a little concerned about this cheese because the plate only covers half of this, and the impeller would still be riding over this stuff. So I'm going to try to clean that up a little bit more. I couldn't get to stuff inside the pump all the way at the back. I needed smaller hands, so thankfully I have a wonderful helper here who's helping us get to the back of that. Good job. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I believe we have the stuff to reassemble the pump, and I believe the internal areas of the pump are as clean as we're going to get them. There's a little bit of discoloring and stuff in here, but everything's really smooth now. And we polished that up. That took a little extra elbow grease, but it was worth it. So we'll start by putting the plate in. There's a name for this. It'll be on the video. Okay, all right, let's start. We're going to seal the screw threads with some RTV. Put a good layer of ultra black around this. Try not to wear it all. All right. And making sure this stayed, it's perfectly inside here. If this is sticking out, your cover is going to stick out, which means it's going to leak like crazy. So always make sure that you don't have a lip here. Just checking to make sure we're not sticking up. Okay, next we're going to put grease on the splines of the shaft. I use a waterproof grease. This stuff's pretty strong. This corrosion block, they've got it in most marine shops. Or you can use spline grease, which is even stickier and nastier. Either one of them, you'll be fine. Okay, I put the impeller under the front of the pump so I can sit here and rotate the shaft and make sure I've got all the splines filled with this waterproof grease. You don't want to get too much on here. You'll just put a big pile of it at the back of the pump, which will be pretty messy wherever your pump's discharging, hopefully not over the side into the water. Got a little bit of grease inside the impeller. Next, we'll use the impeller lubricant that they send with the impeller, and we'll wipe the entire inside surface and also put a generous amount on the impeller itself. And this stuff's kind of getting everywhere, so I'm just going with it. So when the motor's rotating, it turns the shaft this way, so you always want to put your impeller in the right direction. So we'll twist it in this direction to seat it. Like that. One last thing not to forget is what I call the rubber dot. And this is supposed to go in the end of the impeller here. Just don't forget to put that in. Just to make absolutely sure you've bottomed all the way out, I like to take the back of a screwdriver and just kind of pop the impeller all the way around. And you can see that really got us all the way down. Okay, a quick wipe around the top with lacquer thinner now to make sure that we're going to get a good seal here. Same on the cover. Fun part of this is I'm actually going to put more grease back on the center of the impeller because we don't want this to run dry and grease free. We just don't want that grease in the way of our cover sealing area. Okay, I'm putting a very thin bead of gasket maker all the way around. Any of these gasket maker silicones are fine for this. Okay, have you ever heard the term hydroing a bolt? These are enclosed threaded inserts here. If you put enough of that gasket material inside the hole and then run the screw down, you could be unlucky enough to crack the case. So don't get crazy and fill up any of these holes with sealant or any other material. Okay, set your gasket in place. Now we're going to repeat that treatment of the thin silicone around the cover. Some people might prefer to put the silicone on the gasket, but I just find that I use too much and the gasket slides all over, so I like to do it on the cover. I spread it more evenly. And in all reality, this is a trash pump anyway, so if you've got a little bit of extra silicone on the lid, it's going to scrub it right off and Just pump it out the back. It's easy to align the cover because the writing faces upright from the mounting bracket. Just install our cover screws. Okay, these are bronze screws. Don't get crazy with them. Can't tell you how many busted screws I've seen. Just take it easy and go up nice and easy. Definitely no power tools. I've seen these get replaced with bolts and then they just snap those off too. Don't do it. Just slowly go around these like you would the 5 lug nuts on a car, because you are squishing that little thin film of silicone ×2. But just be real easy and keep checking until you're satisfied that they're all snug, and let the silicone and the gasket do its job. Okay, I think we're good to go. Remember, when you get your new impeller, when you open this, there's a gasket in here, and they do give you instructions in several languages that show you the parts and how to put it together and stuff. And it does incidentally tell me that the name of what I call the rubber dot is the impeller spline seal. Replace if supplied. We've put the pump back onto the mounting bracket in the same location on the slots that it was when we took it apart. But this might be a good time to mention that this pump was not on the engines when I bought this yacht, and I talked to the previous owner and it wasn't on when he had it. So that might be interesting installing. That's good enough for now until we see where it actually lines up.
Okay, what you got out there?
Here comes the big pump. Oh, where can I put it down?
That? Put on the rag.
That's a good idea. Okay, here we are at the port engine, also known as Paul. And right down here on the front is where I believe this pump is supposed to go. So let's see if it fits. Okay, back up, redo. Here we are with the starboard engine, also known as Sally. And thanks to a tip from the previous owner, this is the correct location. We looked at the plumbing on the other side and that was totally a no-go. So, all right, we're gonna try to hang it in here. We found 4 proper 3/8 tapped 3/8 16 holes, so that's gotta be the spot. We're gonna try it. Well, that looks promising. Those are gonna be some long belts. Okay. Let's do this. All right, you're gonna have to help me. What do you think, Cinnamon?
I don't know how he's gonna reach on this thing because it's not even. So maybe this one is gonna be underneath.
That's gonna be an even longer belt. I'm going around a corner.
This is hard.
It doesn't look terrible from here though. I think it's gonna be all right, yeah. Okay. That's a longer belt than I expected though.
Great.
You have to be careful coming down here when it's running.
So it means that ring run, this is running also?
Correct, just like this one.
Oh my.
Just running in neutral, you know.
Oh, only for neutral.
It just spins, it just doesn't run, just like this. You have to turn this on, and remember you have to step on the button to run the winch.
Right.
But the wheel goes around the whole time.
Yeah.
So does this, so does that.
Okay.
So, well, we don't come through here when it's running anyway, you just have to be careful.
Right.
But long hair and long sleeves would be pretty dangerous.
Maybe you need to put a
guard. You could put some. We could.
Like right here.
Yeah, it would be difficult, but we could probably come up with some kind of guard. But the easier thing is just to not come back here while it's running because it's hot too.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Yeah, good job.
Okay, you want to find a bolt?
Yeah, we got to get a couple things going here. We're turning these bolts upside down because this one ended up interfering with the travel for the belt adjustment, and we didn't want to lose that amount of travel. That's the spot that we used the grinder on, just to give us a little bit more clearance here, because the belt adjustment for the hydraulic winch pump and this crash pump, they were just rubbing against each other, so gave ourselves a little bit of clearance in there for adjustment. All right, hit it, Cinnamon.
What are you doing?
Trying to figure out if this belt angle is correct, and I think it's leaning forward, so I think it does go in the next 2 grooves here. I have the belt on the tightest adjustment I can make, and obviously this piece of wire is at the bottom of the groove. So I'm going to take this electric wire and I'll just put a piece of tape on it where they're touching, and then I'll get a belt that's 1 inch longer than that. That's my story, I'm sticking to it. You guys will find out if it works. These are the belts for the hydraulic winch. So these were time to go to. Okay, full disclosure, I was wrong. It actually was only 1 belt above that though. So the one where I measured a 1 inch extra, that didn't cover it. Probably because the size, the diameter of these wheels. And also the belts sit pretty high in the grooves. So I ended up having to go back and get the next size larger belt. But we went ahead and we replaced the ones for the winch, and we cleaned up the winch pulley at the same time. We're ready to try this now. These two belts actually don't seem to be the same quite exactly length. So if we don't like them, I might have to change one of them again. Anyway, we're gonna give it a try just to see if it's spinning okay. The clearance in here is a little tight, but everything looks true. So I don't think we've got a problem there on our alignment. So we'll just give it a try. Let's go ahead and kick her over here. So one of the original things on this panel was the emergency bilge pump, and it was out of service, well, obviously. And we were lucky enough to find that now that we know where that pump goes, we found the old supply wires. So we'll test this and make sure this is still working, and this is gonna be an easier install than I'd hoped. Guess you just call it a reinstall now. Well, Cinnamon's literally sharing space with the oil pan between the stringers, and she's going ahead and wiring up the vacuum switch. We probably could have done this part ahead of time, but we wanted to see how everything fit. She fits pretty good in there. How are you doing?
I'm good, but if I stay here more longer, it's gonna hurt my neck.
All right, we've got the all the wiring done. So we've got the breaker here. We'll turn that on. Okay, we've got the vacuum switch all wired up and connected. Let's see if the clutch works. Great. All right, now we just need some hose. Okay, we got to do a little reconfiguration here. That right side fitting, that's the 2-inch that was originally for the crash pump, emergency bilge pump. And the one that's the second from the left, or the third over, whichever, that's where the macerator should be going. It has the clear hose on it. The clear hose is something somebody did and adapted down to be a vent, a secondary vent off of the black tanks. And I believe that's because the black tank vent was plugged for a while, or the hose, and they may have been trying to, I don't know, do something else. I can't figure out why. So now I've got to move the hoses around because these are all in the wrong holes, or they're cut for the right size hoses. So I got to move the white one up, yank out the clear one, put the 2-inch in there. Ooh, what the hell was that?
Oh, you break something?
It sounded like something popped. Okay, we got our 2-inch hose in here now, and
where is it? Over there?
yeah, it's gonna go up probably behind that one, but we got to get this end on first so we know the right length of everything. Oh, that's easy. Okay, we're gonna put a little soap on there.
Okay, you ready to soap?
Yeah, so sometimes we use boiling water to make this easier. If you're using this kind of hose, the sanitation hose, this stuff is really tough. It does not stretch willingly. So that's great to boil some water and dip it in it, and then put some Dawn or Lemon Joy on the hose and fitting, and you can get it on there. And then if you want, you can douse it with cool water afterwards. Just don't overheat it. If you do that. With this one, it's gonna go, so we're just gonna put a little soap and call it a day. Don't forget to put your clamps on going opposite directions first, or you got to fight it all over again. Or start from the other end. Is that all the way up? It's all the way up.
You're right, Paul.
All right, so we've got about a 1/4 inch from the end of the hose for the first clamp, and then we've put just about 1/8 of an inch or so between the clamps, and then we still have a 1/4 inch or so of fitting, and there's a barb close to the end. So this is going to be a good connection here. We're also using the really high quality ADA, I think that's what they're called, clamps. These things, they don't have any slots, they won't cut it. They're a fully wrapped band, they take a ton of torque. So this is good for, this is the pressure hose, so we're using the best clamps you can get because we don't want to blow this thing off. So this is what the macerator was pumping out of. So yeah, that's Shizer stain. Anyway, this is not a hose barb. So the hose was just on a pipe nipple with some sealant. So that would have really been a crappy mess if the hose would have blown off of that, literally. All right, take this.
Oh my gosh. It is it?
You gave me one good clamp and one piece. I wish I had $1 for everything like this that we fixed. You can see the marks where the hose had been strapped, but some melonhead decided to reattach it in front of the wiring. So here we go, moving the thing back where it belongs, which takes all of this long to put it back where it's supposed to be again. Now it's safe. All the way up. That was easy.
Oh, that's easy.
Yep, that's the idea. I'm going to rotate it so that when it's sitting facing downwards, the pieces are. There we go, so it can sit right. All right, all done in here. Got a nice strap to hold the hose down. We're all double clamped across. So we've got our macerator out, bilge out, and emergency bilge out on the 2-inch. That's huge. But it went back in the original hole over here on the wall, just like it was made for it. So it was nice to get that back together. So we leave this one down here. In a pinch, we could draw water right off the bottom. Would it draw up these diapers? I'm not sure. We may get a piece of screen just to leave in there, or a strainer. But we can pull it out when we need it. We've got locks on here. Undo the locks. Put the cam lock together and close it. And we're ready to draw in now with our suction end, which has a big obnoxious hose but can reach anywhere down here. This compartment, that compartment, that the back can go through the bulkhead into the front part of the boat if it has to. So we'll get this thing, this trash can full of water, and we'll test it out. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to test the emergency crash pump, also known as the emergency bilge pump, on this Hatteras 65. What do you think? All right, we got the hose end strainer finally for a hose. We've got our pump out fitting. We're going to hook it all up. We've got a big trash can. The only way to test this thing properly is to have a lot of water. So we're going to fill this trash can with water. This pump is supposed to pump 78.5 gallons a minute at its rated RPM of 1750. These engines will actually do, we'll do 2,500 with no load on them. So, but we'll use that spec to figure out what it should pump at idle. Okay, this pump should make 78.5 gallons per minute. So we're going to divide this by 1750 RPM. And I've got 0.044 gallons per minute per RPM. So I'm going to multiply that times my idle speed of 600. And that says I should pump 26.9 gallons per minute at my 600 RPM idle speed. I'm going to divide that by 60. And that means it should pump 0.44 of a gallon a second. So if that's to 4485, so if we say 20 gallon trash can divided by 0.4485, it should pump the trash can out in 44 seconds. So we'll try it out. Okay, so the plan here is we'll start the engine, we'll stick the hose in the water. There's a vacuum switch under here that we covered earlier in building the pump. I'll have to depress the vacuum switch bypass, basically to force the pump clutch to engage. And once I see the water hit the pump, I should be able to let go of that switch and vacuum will hold the pump running. If the pump stops, then my test is going to be over early. My switch doesn't work. If it keeps going, that's great. When we run it out of water in the trash can, similarly, the clutch should disengage as soon as it loses vacuum. And that means to keep it from running dry. So we're going to try all these things in this test. It's going to be a little noisy in here, so I don't know how much of that you'll be able to hear. We'll probably just show you everything and add titles as we need to. Okay, your hands clear? Mm-hmm. All right, we're ready to go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the test of the emergency bilge pump system. Should this have been a real emergency, we would have been sweating bullets and bricks and actually using that thing. But I think it's ready to go, and it was definitely worthwhile time spent. Everything's working, and actually using it was a good test. You have to hold the vacuum switch enough time for the water column to reach the pump, obviously, to draw the vacuum. And it did disconnect as soon as it ran out of water, so that was great. So I'm glad to have that done and ready to go. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content on the Hatteras 65C.